Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the first ever Climate Summit for San Mateo County. We have an extraordinary group of people here with us today, both virtually, over 150, and in person, 150. We maxed out capacity in this space as well. My name is Georgia Farouk, and I'm the Executive Director of Thrive, the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. On behalf of Thrive, Climate Resilient Communities, Nuestra Casa, and Rise South City, our co-hosts, we're thrilled to have you all here today. Today's Climate Summit, Building a Collective Commitment to Ensure Climate Adaptation and Equity, represents many months of hard work and partnership, and we see it as only the beginning of this conversation and the work that is ahead. So today is significant for many reasons, and the primary one is that we're centering community voice, and we're all here today to learn from our frontline communities. That is our main goal. Thank you again to our amazing co-hosts and organizing partners. You will learn more about them today. A little bit about Thrive and why we're a part of such a coalition in the first place. Thrive is an alliance of nonprofits for all of San Mateo County. And our mission is to promote and support a nonprofit sector that contributes to the economic and social health of this county. Our work is unique in that it's cross-sector, and it cuts across key issue areas like environment and sustainability. Something you may not know about Thrive, even if you know us well, is that we recently launched something called a COAD. It's a national model, and it stands for Community Organizations Active in Disaster. A COAD is a network of nonprofits ready to work together in the event of a disaster. And we all know that many of today's disasters are being ushered in by climate change and disproportionately impacting frontline communities, and we'll be discussing that throughout the day. So we have several people to thank as we open up today's summits because an event of this scale and significance would not be possible without major investment from the community. So this space, first, we would not be in this beautiful space if it wasn't for the support of Stanford University, and we want to thank them. The Climate Summit, as you all can see here, is co-presented by Stanford University with support from the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability, which is relatively new, the Haas Center for Public Service, and the Office of Community Engagement. Thank you to all of our partners at Stanford that have made this come to life. So in particular, I want to thank the Office of Community Engagement team, all of them, including Megan Sweezy Fogarty, Preeti Haymeyer, and Joanna Jeffs, also Lisa Chung, and all of the fantastic team. So you've been meeting with us week in and week out, just making sure that this is an event that reflects and serves the community at the highest level. We also want to thank the faculty advisors that deepen the scholarship of today's event. They include Dr. Desiree LeBeau, Dr. Sarah Singer, and Dr. Gabrielle Wong-Perotti. Thank you all for your service to today and to our collective mission. So now to provide a welcome on behalf of Stanford leadership, I'd like to invite Cam Moeller, Vice Provost and Dean of Research of Stanford University.
Georgia, thank you so much for the great framing of today's event and for all the work that you've done to bring it together. I'm here on behalf of Stanford leadership to welcome you to the Stanford Redwood City campus for today's Climate Summit for San Mateo County. I also want to extend a very warm welcome to those who are joining by live stream. Hi, live stream folks. I especially want to thank the event organizers, Thrive, Climate Resilient Communities, Nuestra Casa, and the Rise South City for your leadership. I also want to thank everyone who's here today, both in person and live stream, for joining, not just to learn, but also to share what it is that we need to do to be ready for what is coming. Our atmospheric scientists and climate scientists cannot predict the weather very far in advance. That's why if you look at your iPhone or you Google weather San Mateo County, you only get a 10-day prediction of what's happening because the best models with the best knowledge that we have only go 14 days out. But we can predict the rising likeliness of extreme weather events, and we can see that playing out in the world around us. 1,300 dead in Pakistan, 500 of them children. I think we still don't know the death toll from Florida, but we've all seen the videos of what's been happening. It's no longer a question of if your community will suffer from an extreme weather event, it's a question of when. And it's vitally important, I believe, for universities around the world to be studying not only the climate science that will hopefully give us ever better predictions of these events, but also working closely in community-engaged scholarship with the communities who will be most deeply impacted by these events that we know are coming. Stanford just conducted a multi-year planning process, and during that planning process, our entire community repeatedly said, we should do more on this incredible existential threat. So we've founded the new Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability, Stanford's first new school in over 75 years, with a collective vision to conduct scholarship to help build a future in which humans and nature can thrive together in perpetuity. And today, I hope that we can learn from you what kind of scholarship is most important for us to conduct. The vision that we should found a new school focused on sustainability and interdisciplinary school changed the structure of the university to better reflect our culture and values. The three professors that you saw earlier on the school, especially Professor Gabrielle Wong-Perotti, who we just hired a few years ago, are examples of the kind of professors that we need more of. Professors who conduct the highest degree of scholarship and who do it in partnership with the local communities that their scholarship may have the chance to impact and whose experience best informs their scholarship. The new structure of the university will enable us, hopefully, to achieve the scholarship that we aspire to now, immediately, when we need it most, and also in the decades to come. I'm Stanford's Senior Research Officer. I have a broad set of responsibilities, but starting the new Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability has been a huge passion for me, and working with the hundreds and thousands of other people who helped to make it happen has been probably the greatest honor of my life. And I can't tell you how happy I am now to be here at this event and see all of you coming together to impact the space where I and my children also live. This school's opening is another part of a journey that Stanford has always tried to be on, with purposeful engagement in education and research, and hopefully with a deeper level of engagement with local partners like you, along with our national and global partners. I look forward to hearing about your discussions and the ideas that you explore that are of shared interest and that are urgent. So Stanford University is pleased to co-present today's Climate Summit as your partner in this journey. On behalf of Stanford leadership and my colleagues here today, thank you for your collective commitment to this work. I had the chance to speak with Mark Tessier-Levine and Dean Arun Majumdar, the new dean of the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability, and they both also sent their thanks and their best wishes for your efforts today. Georgia, I'm grateful to invite you back to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Cam, and thank you, Stanford, for your commitment to climate justice. So today's also made possible by incredible philanthropic support. As we all know, these events need investment. This kind of work needs investment. And you'll learn all about the summit's sponsors throughout the day. Our lead sponsors at the Earth level are Silicon Valley Community Foundation and Peninsula Clean Energy. Notably, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, or SVCF, has also invested in broader movement building and power building initiatives for each of today's co-hosts. And that's been happening for the last several years. So SVCF knows that shifting the balance of power is essential to ensure that our local communities of color have an equal role in shaping our region's future. And in turn, they've invested heavily in the community organizing efforts of our BIPOC-led and allied nonprofit organizations. These investments help create the infrastructure to make today's climate summit and all the work that will follow possible. So we're thrilled to have Nicole Taylor, CEO of Silicon Valley Community Foundation, here with us this morning to provide a few remarks to help us open our summit with that lens. So thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, and thank you, Georgia. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. On behalf of the Community Foundation, we are proud to sponsor today's summit. And as Georgia said, through many years and programs, we've been lucky to have partnered with the organizers of this event, Thrive Alliance, Nuestra Costra, and Rise South City. And since I've been at SVCF, I'm excited that we've deepened our partnership with Stanford on a number of fronts, including the critical issue of equity in our region. So it's wonderful to be here with our partners and to support this event. The Community Foundation is committed to climate justice and to investing in organizations in San Mateo County, working to foster a healthier and cleaner environment in our communities. Environmental justice is a crucial issue for us. Our vision for this region is a community that is united to create an equitable and economically secure and vibrant region for everybody who is here and who lives here. And in order to achieve that, a sustainable future is needed, and that means environmental and climate justice. Because after all, environmental justice is a social justice issue. The two are undeniably linked. As we all well know, and as will be discussed today, as Georgia said, low-income BIPOC communities end up with waste treatment plants, refineries, and water contamination in our communities. And I say our communities because, guess where I grew up? Guess who had asthma all her life? Guess whose son had asthma, still does at age 23? So these communities, our communities, are disproportionately shouldering the impacts of worsening air quality, longer heat waves, and prolonged droughts. The residents, the ones who suffer the most harm, need to be front and center in our work and in our conversations around environmental and climate justice. And the Community Foundation believes that our region's path through this crisis begins by building power in these very communities. So we're proud to support and invest the local nonprofits that have been leading this effort and advocating for a better future for all of us. And decisions like improving access to clean air, water, open space, food, and countering the climate crisis are what is going to make this region better for everybody. 1 year ago this month, I'm excited to say that we awarded our first round of environmental justice grants, $300,000 in total to nonprofits across our 2 counties, and many of whom are here in this room today. Thank you for the work that you are doing. We have donors here, which is fantastic, who are part of our donor circle for the environment, and they've supported the establishment of a regional climate collaborative here in San Mateo County. And I'm proud to announce that we are increasing our commitment, and we've opened another round of environmental justice grants, and it'll be open through next Friday, October 14th. And our staff member who's leading that, Jack Mahoney, please stand up. If you want to know more about it and how to apply and how to receive this money, he's the guy. So today's summit is I know, Jack, sorry, I hope you brought business cards. Jay Mahoney at SiliconValleyCF.org. Today's summit is so important in bringing everyone together and a continued commitment to climate adaptation and, most importantly, equity. So again, on behalf of the Community Foundation, thank you to each of you who are committed to this and are here. Thanks. Georgia.
Thank you, Nicole and Silicon Valley Community Foundation, and to Jack, who's going to be fielding some inquiries later today. So finally, I'd love to introduce my team member at Thrive, who has been tirelessly working to make the community's vision of today a reality. Most of you know her, Petra Silton, our Senior Director of Programs. Petra transforms ideas into action, all while making it meaningful and somehow fun, which is why we're all sitting here today. Petra's passion around climate justice has only grown and strengthened in the last few years, and her deep commitment to lifting community voice has made her a fierce organizer, ally, and partner to so many in this work. Petra, please help lead us into the day's work and the day's fun.
Thank you, Georgia. That was a great introduction. I appreciate it. I'm looking out in the room and I'm getting a little emotional. We have worked on this for over a year. We've been thinking about it forever, and it's happening. And even though there's right now, this is just the start. We're just getting going. There's a lot more to do, but to see all of you in the room and committed to this, and everybody on Zoom, welcome, is really emotional. So I still have to do a little bit of housekeeping for everyone who's on Zoom. If you want to listen in Spanish, we're providing this in Spanish, and you can just click on the interpretation logo on the right-hand side. So para escuchar en español en Zoom, haga clic en el icono de globo a la derecha. You can also turn on real-time transcription by clicking the More button on the right bottom, which will enable the live transcription. And for everyone, you can download the Whova app. It's a great way for you to connect with the other people in the room, and you'll be able to send messages to people after this event as well. So the next slide, I want to talk about the summit outcomes. So in this room, we have participants from philanthropy, from government, from academics, from community-based organizations, and community members, all in the same room, working towards our collective commitment to ensure climate adaptation and equity. This is a unique gathering. I don't know if anybody happened to be listening 7 o'clock this morning to KQED, but there was a quick interview with me, and one of the questions they asked was, do any other counties do this? And I'm like, number one, county's not doing it. This is led by community-based organizations. And number two, don't think so. Like, I don't know. But I think this is a pretty unique thing to have the community-based organizations really leading the conversation. So another thing not everyone knows is that San Mateo County is one of the most climate vulnerable counties in all of California. We have high exposure to sea level rise, river-based flooding, wildfire, extreme heat, landslide, drought. Adaptation to these evolving conditions means changing both our social structures and our built environment in a way that leaves nobody behind. Equitable adaptation means prioritizing frontline communities who will otherwise be the first and hardest hit by natural hazard events. So adaptation and equity are the core themes for this summit. Our goal today is to catalyze all of you, government, elected officials, community organizations, academics, and residents, to learn about adaptation needs in San Mateo County frontline communities, learn how to bring communities and community-based organizations to the forefront of addressing climate change in the county, create stronger relationships between communities and all sectors to shift power dynamics, and build collective commitments to actions that ensure communities in the county are prepared for and protected from climate change. We're going to ask you to make a commitment today. We invite you to share the commitments on our hashtag Climate Summit SMC, with a message about your organization or your community's climate commitment, your project successes, lessons learned from today, lived experiences. So this event is a result of a collaboration, long-time collaboration between Thrive, Climate Resilient Communities, Nuestra Casa, and Ride South City. We've also had support from Stanford and from Connected to Place. Thrive partners for this event have been the ones driving the content. These organizations do the hard work of environmental justice every day by listening to the voices of community and turning their concerns into action. We're excited to have them share their work now with the broader community. We're going to start with each of them has designed, developed, and will lead a panel that focuses on the 3 important conversations that address the recurring challenges for equitable adaptation in San Mateo County and how to transcend these challenges. So we'll start with a discussion led by Violet Wolf-Saena, Executive Director of Climate Resilient Communities. She will interview 3 panelists from Stanford about the state of research on climate and health impacts, the partnerships between CBOs and researchers, and how we can use this research to develop sound policy and practice that tangibly reduces the risk to frontline communities. Having established a collective understanding of the unique impacts that climate change has on frontline communities in the first panel, Miriam Yupanqui, Executive Director of Nuestra Casa, will lead the second panel in a discussion of how to shift the power dynamics towards communities in the climate adaptation process. They will discuss effective ways of partnering with community-based organizations to ensure that projects and programs adequately address community needs. Finally, Julio Garcia, Executive Director of Rise South City, will lead the last panel on a key aspect of climate resilience: funding. Sorry, Jack, you again. Actually, we have excused Silicon Valley Community Foundation from that panel, but we'll be talking about you. The panel will discuss ways that government and philanthropy can ensure that available resources for climate adaptation are targeted towards population areas with the greatest need for adaptation projects and are consistent with community priorities. Each panel will take questions from the audience. If you're on Zoom, please submit your questions either through Zoom or through the Whova app. And we'll also have several times during the day when you'll be able to discuss this with other attendees. And we look forward to some innovative ideas. You'll see there are Post-it notes, there are things around the room. We are going to be collecting ideas today. So briefly, there's the agenda. We have it posted lots of places. I'm not going to read it to you. But like I said, there's lots of time for discussion. In addition, we have invited community-based organizations who wanted you to know more about their organizations to do tabling. It's all in the cafe. And one of the things we realized is we are very ambitiously billing this as the first annual. So we'll see if you guys applaud at the end of the day. But I'm glad everyone has got positive feelings about it so far. So because of that, we had to make a lot of choices about what not to include. So one of the ways that we're addressing that is by having the tabling outside so that people are able to meet more of the community-based organizations that are doing fabulous work. We have our partners, we have some of them on the panel, but there's so many more. San Mateo County is very diverse with lots of great organizations, and that's one of the reasons that Thrive started working in environment and sustainability, was because we are conveners and we realized that there wasn't a place where a lot of environment and sustainability organizations are working here in San Mateo County, had to all come together. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Miriam.
Good morning, and thank you for being here with us today. Before we proceed with the rest of the program, I would like to thank our generous sponsors: Peninsula Clean Energy, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, Sandhill Foundation, Grove Foundation, County of San Mateo Office of Sustainability, and Stanford University. I would also like to thank our Summit Planning Committee member organizations: Climate Resilient Communities, Nuestra Casa, Rise South City, Thrive Alliance, and Connected to Place. Thank you all for making this event possible. I would also now like to introduce Jonathan Cordero, who will review our land acknowledgement agreement. Jonathan Cordero, PhD, is founder and executive director of the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, affiliated scholar in the Indigenous Law Center at UC Hastings, and visiting scholar in the Spatial Sciences Institute at USC. He works as a consultant in both the public and private sectors, especially in the arts, and he serves as a leader, speaker, and activist in the broader Ohlone and Chamush communities. Welcome, Jonathan.
Rashatuhi and Haku to all of you. Greetings, good morning. I hope you don't mind my casual dress, but I'm here for 5 minutes today, and I integrated my opening remarks today in my walk. I live just 3 miles away, and what better to walk to a climate summit than drive, right? So we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples. We are the original peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. And our organization's been in existence since about 2009, and this is actually the first year of our nonprofit. In our nonprofit, work, which you can find online at www.ramatosh.org. We have engaged in, of course, in a lot of ecological restoration work and some community service work. So our community service work at present is actually in the process of acquiring land. We gobble up all the little bits of land that we possibly can and turn it into urban farms and gardens for marginalized communities along the San Francisco Peninsula. So I'm happy to be here today. If I can, I would also like to add that as Native peoples, for those of you who are also Native in the room, you'll resonate with this. One of our primary responsibilities is to care for Mother Earth. And also, the second is to care for the marginalized peoples who live in our ancestral lands. So the combination, of course, of those two resonates with the work of climate justice along the San Francisco Peninsula. And I'd like to leave with two observations. When I started doing ecological restoration work, I was very surprised that in the San Francisco Bay Area that the staff of the land management organizations, mainly the land trusts and the ecological restoration organizations, were deficient in persons of color on staff, number one. And you all know how many persons of color, students of color, graduate with degrees in biology in the San Francisco Bay Area, so where are they? Secondly, while these land management groups espouse very high principles of caring for our land, they have historically forgotten to ask whose land are they caring for in the first place. All of that, of course, is changing, and we are even seeing traditional ecological knowledge integrated into this kind of work, as you all well know. So things are changing and improving, and I'm very grateful for that. So have a wonderful conference today. I am going to continue my walk and enjoy your time here, and thank you.
Jonathan. Good morning, everyone. Yes, for those who are standing at the back, there's a lot of seats available in the front. If you want to come and join us, be a little bit more comfortable. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my role today as one of the coordinators. We are I am very grateful and appreciative with everyone in the room. And I'd like to make a special mention of all the community leaders that are here today. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us. This meeting or conference coming together, it's our way of creating a space, opportunities for everyone to engage and hopefully make lots of new friends and empower each other to go out and do the work that needs to be done. I also like to make a special mention of our youth who are also here today. Thank you guys for coming. But before we move forward, I would like to share some norms. As I have mentioned, we want to create this space as a safe space for everyone in this room. And so some of the norms that we have highlighted for our meeting today include, stepping up or step back if there's a need, be open to new ideas and different ways of thinking, and also seek common ground. And I hope that by the end of the day, we will all create a memorable event and memories for each of you. Next slide, please. So we're here as a community, and we want to share with each other. And this is what we want to highlight for this conference, is that our community authority We must empower residents, grassroots leaders as peers with shared authority, shared responsibility, and shared accountability. Sharing authority is essential to partnership success. Do not settle for community voice. As we have seen many times in the past, the practice of getting feedback from the community on projects, on policies, but we want you to not settle for community voice only. Don't just ask for feedback, but invite community to co-develop, co-design projects. And I have to tell you this because this is what I experience all the time. Having community at the table produces better results. We must shift power dynamics, and I've heard that a couple of speeches that I've just finished. We have to, and it must emerge from those impacted, affected by climate change and existing systems and policies. So this is what our organizing committee want to highlight as our community authority for today. Now, it gives me great pleasure and honor to introduce our key speaker for the day. Oh, one more slide? Okay, next slide. Sorry about that. Julio, do you want to do this?
Sure, thank you.
Come on.
You're going to stay right here.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, they were calling. Like, morning, you all. I'm so glad to be here sharing this space with all of you, especially with my partners, Nuestra Casa, Tribe, and Violet. We've been partners, for a long time, CRC. Yeah, so, I mean, when we talk and when we start planning this, Georgia recalling, and she was so emotional because we start over the phone years and years ago just planning this and in person. We decided to have some guidelines for us, and definitely we talk about what we're going to be doing. So the first decision that we make is that we were going to do this center community in leadership and decision making. Us as small CBOs, like Violet said, we work with communities. We're every day in communities. Our office is in South San Francisco. Our office is in East Palo Alto. We're not moving from there. We're staying there for the long run, and we're accountable to the community. So as we are accountable to funders, and funders are accountable to us, we're accountable to our communities where we work, where we stay, where we live. So it's a thing that I say, it's like, community are experts on communities. And we cannot move with that. I see the young ones right here. We're experts on communities. The second is we need to partner with small CBOs. Again, we are in communities. We're not the large organizations. We're not the large nonprofits. We're small CBOs that we struggle for funding all the time. Where's Jack? Hi, Jack. Hi. Another part of that we need to advance cultural and language justice. That is really important to us. Work with communities that, language is an issue. And culture is different than the culture that we have here. Spanish, Samoan, Tongan, Fijian, Tagalog, that we work in South San Francisco. We need those languages, and we need to communicate on the same level. We cannot be translating, and we cannot be having monitors. That is not cutting for our communities. We need to advance justice. That's what we need to do. The next one is that we need to work with principles. Are we on principles? Good. I don't see that stuff. We need to prepare and protect frontline communities. We're the last ones. We don't have flood insurance. We don't have earthquake insurance. We don't have any kind of insurance. We hardly make the next month's rent. What about if something happened in a community? What about if my apartment gets flooded? I won't have money to pay for deposit for my next month rent. Where are we going to be living? Again, on the streets because we don't have enough low-income housing, but that's another conversation. We need to prioritize nature-based solutions. Like we're doing a lot of work, CRC is working a lot harder in East Palo Alto to prioritize nature-based solutions, and we're partnering with them in South San Francisco to start working with that community up front with nature-based solutions. And last one, we need to promote community resilience. Whatever resilience is for us in neighborhoods, networks, and we need to start creating centers for community because unfortunately, climate change is here. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we were in a heat wave. Right now, we don't know what is going to happen, and we're trying to find solutions, but it's going to be hard. So we need to work together, and we need to start partnering with communities. With that, I give the phone to my friend Violet.
Thank you,
Love
Julio.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. Thank you, Julio, for those guidelines and reminders. Today, we will be having a lot of conversations around urgency, frontline communities, and community priorities to adapt to climate change and sea level rise. It is now my great pleasure and honor to introduce our key speaker for today. And it has been a privilege for me as a organizer, working with communities on the ground, especially having leaders on the ground that believes in the work that we are doing, as well as her passion and commitment to her community. Cecilia Taylor, Council Member Cecilia Taylor, is a social justice advocate, community organizer, and nonprofit founder. She served as the mayor of Menlo Park in 2020, only the second person from her community in 35 years. Cecilia founded the nonprofit Belhaven Action to drive equitable outcomes for her community. She is tireless in her efforts on environmental justice and community health and wellness, as demonstrated through her service on the REACH Coalition, Umoja Health for San Mateo County, the UCSF Long COVID Advisory Board, the Stanford Community Health Council from 2022 to 2025, the Community Emergency Response Team, and on the boards of many nonprofits. Cecilia Taylor, Council Member Cecilia, has also guided CRC to establish a climate change community team in Belhaven of Menlo Park. And currently, the team, chaired by Max, who is here, are making progress on community-led solutions. Please join me in welcoming Council Member Cecilia Taylor. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for that humble and gracious introduction. Sometimes it warms my heart to look back that it has only been 5 years since I've been active in the community, which is not a long time. And I struggle every day with being humble about being patient, because it has been so long for my community to have representation in many, many, many spaces. Me being elected to the Menlo Park City Council allowed me the privilege to have access to those spaces that my community was not in for almost 40 years. And so now I feel this sense of urgency to always speak up, to always bring my chair to sit at that table, to always pull some of my community members in with me, because the work is we know it's needed, but because there hasn't been that voice in those spaces for so long, that the work needs to be done at a more urgent level. My community, I feel, is drowning. So, excuse me. My name is Cecilia Taylor. I am on the Menlo Park City Council. I also started an organization called Belhaven Action. I am also third generation in the Belhaven neighborhood in Menlo Park. And so when I do my work, it is through my ancestors and my parents that I get my motivation. In fact, my biggest cheerleader is my mother, who is also in this room. It is important for me to start the conversation, start my presentation with who I am, because it is my authentic self that I bring to every conversation. I do my best to say the same things in public that I would say in private, probably with a little bit cleaner language. Next slide. The history of land use and disinvestment. Belhaven City was annexed into the city of Menlo Park over 70 years ago. The Belhaven neighborhood was created and designed through redlining, blockbusting, and discriminatory land use practices. What is significant about this is that we went from resourcing a city to resourcing a neighborhood. And so there's a huge gap in resources that comes along with that. Next slide. Thank you. The Belhaven community is bounded by Highway 84, which is Willow Road, the Bayfront Expressway, and the connection to the Dumbarton Bridge and the 101 freeway. We are isolated from the rest of the city and historically underserved, under-resourced, and underrepresented. So if you look at the pictures, if you can go back just once, sorry about that. Thank you. Just if you look at the pictures, it is clear, you look at the triangle, that we are majority in the flood zone. And so when you think about development, our city is developing all around our area, which means when that development is completed, all of the water is coming into our neighborhood, and there are no protections for us at the moment. I was hoping that Supervisor Pine was here today to talk about his work with One Shoreline, because I believe One Shoreline is one of the solutions to our issue with flooding. Next slide. Thank you. So the picture on the far right is the 101 interchange prior to the redevelopment of that area. It's no longer the cloverleaf, where you have the kind of a roundabout when you get on the freeway. But what you notice there is that there's trees around the freeway. There were 200 trees cut and not replaced to replace an entrance to the freeway. And so when we bring this up in conversation to our elected officials, to Caltrans, to whomever cut those trees, the question is, why were they not replaced? The Belhaven neighborhood has a tree canopy of less than 7%. Less than 7%. And so here we have the far right is the 101 freeway entrance. The one in the middle is Pierce Road. I'm not sure how many people in here are familiar with Menlo Park, Pierce Road. That is a sound wall. So the neighbors on Pierce Road, their neighbor is the 101 freeway. And then the last slide to the right, that is Chilco. So I tried to capture some pictures of each entrance to our community of what we're exposed to and how emissions from cars impact us every day. And because of that, our life expectancy is 7 years less than the rest of Menlo Park, and 51% of Belhaven households has at least one person that has asthma. Next slide. This next picture talks about our tree canopy. I mean, you can clearly see with the triangle on the far right that we have less trees, but more significantly, the whole area that is north of 101 has a less tree canopy, which includes North Fair Oaks and East Palo Alto. And you can even see on this slide on the right, this is the Enviro screen. This is what we breathe every day. And I don't see that improving if our tree canopy gets less and less and less. And on top, we see our air quality monitors. Now, I have an interesting story about our air quality monitors. A little brief background about that. In 2019, myself and another council member proposed a moratorium on development. And I got a little flack from housing developers, partly because they didn't understand that the housing that is being built is not serving the community that exists. So why would I open the door to it? I wanted to stop development around my community until we dealt with our immediate issues. Air quality is an immediate issue. I knew everyone who is a part of community and the environmental impact reports knew that the monitors were in Redwood City. So how is a monitor in Redwood City going to benefit measuring air quality in Menlo Park? But that is what is used in our environmental impact reports. And so I, myself, and our current mayor, Betsy Nash, proposed the moratorium in 2019. We did not get support from the majority of the council, but we still advocate for the issues that we stood for 3 years ago because they're still needed. And so what ended up happening is that it became a debate, a political debate in a council meeting about spending $1,000 on air quality monitors. And the majority of the council said no. So instead, we went to the county, San Mateo County Labs, and we got a grant to get air quality monitors. So now we do have monitoring. So now we know. Thank you. Next slide. This photo here, I'd like to talk about milestones, mitigation, adaptation needs, and solutions. I want to bring up the milestones because there has been significant work done both behind the scenes and in public over the past 4 years that I want to acknowledge publicly. And that is the efforts of AB 617, which further affirms fair housing. This policy is to ensure that we do not build affordable housing concentrated in one area, that it is spread out. Because we know that the areas that have developed the most affordable housing have the least access to resources. The Belhaven neighborhood is the only area of Menlo Park that does not have access to health care in the community. Nor is there a place for you to buy sometimes pharmaceutical needs, those simple things that you need. You have to drive out of the community or bus out of the community or walk out of the community to get that. The next policy I wanted to bring up is SB 1000. SB 1000 is the environmental justice policy that is to be included in every general plan update. And the unfortunate part for my community is that that was not included in the 2016 general plan update. So that means a lot of the policies that were needed for us around mitigations and adaptations or even monitoring was not included when our general plan was updated. And the general plan only updated one area of Menlo Park, only one area, which is District 1, which is around the Belhaven neighborhood. The last one is my favorite, SB 330. This is the one where I got flack from our affordable housing developers. SB 330 streamlines development of projects that have 2/3 residential so that we can have housing because we are in a housing crisis. Well, SB 330 is actually helping to gentrify my community because there's nothing in there that includes protecting communities of concern. And every time I hear community of concern, well, how are we concerned? What action are we taking to show concern? And so for me, SB 330, which we will have over 3,000 apartments built under SB 330, and the percentage of affordable isn't even important for me because the fact is those 3,000 units are going to continue to push out communities we keep saying we're concerned about. So that's how SB 330 is impacting me. So when I asked for that moratorium, it was not out of selfishness. It was out of seeing what existing conditions in my neighborhood are. And so what I try to bring in policy and in my organization, existing conditions, how can we improve those folks' quality of life before they die? I don't know if anyone in here has gone door to door in your community before and found out someone passed away 2 days earlier. And the feeling. That happened to my team. Or to have someone call you and say, I need your help because my family abandoned me because I have COVID and I'm a senior. painful experiences happen every day in communities we say we are concerned about. And so how do we change their circumstances? How do we change our circumstances so that we can start helping folks? Because I believe our role is to continue service in some way every day, but first to yourself. Next slide. So collective effort. This is how I bring myself, is with other folks. My team from Bellhaven Action, Violet, Nicole Taylor, my mother, Pam Jones. All of these folks have a collective effort into improving quality of life. There are other organizations as well, along with CRC. There's also the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee that is through the BCDC, which is the Bay Area Conservation Development Commission. I'm probably not saying that correctly. But there are all of these organizations that are actually doing something. And I consider them to be a part of the milestone, a part of the collective effort that we will continue to work towards. I'm very happy to see how many people are in this room, and also to see how many people in this room have been in conversation, not just with myself, but in conversation with people in my community directly. In fact, I have a lot of people in my community that are here today. And so that's that collective effort that we need to continue. So I'm very happy to hear that this is the first annual Climate Summit. Next slide. Why leadership must come first. I sometimes have this private conversation that I'm bringing into the public, that sometimes we put friendship above leadership. And I struggle with that because maybe we will not be friends next year, because I'm not afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations. What it took for my community to have someone after almost 4 decades, to me, is worth continuously fighting for. And when I sat in that seat for the first time, my goal was to make it better for the next person. I want to have succession. I want someone else to walk in my shoes and do better than I did. Why is that? Because I left them a good place to sit. So leadership is extremely important on multiple levels, especially with our youth. It's great that you're here. And I'm not sure what your plans are in life, but as long as you start attending things like this that will impact quality of life, it will make you feel good about yourself. I have a whole lot more that I could say because there are a lot of things that are needed. Something that I struggle with is keeping in mind we are trying to have justice in an unjust system. Justice is a process we aim for. So when we think environmental justice, what does that really mean? And how do we fulfill it the way that we interpret it? And then how do we bring that to the table and discuss that with other folks, which is why having an annual summit is extremely important. Can we go with the next slide? Thank you. There was one piece I didn't cover off of an earlier slide, which we don't need to go back, but that's adaptation. Adaptation is extremely important. What can we do in the short term until we get to the long term? Adaptation is indoor and outdoor air quality monitoring. We know which homes do not have sufficient windows, roofs. We know. So why not make sure that everyone has access to indoor and outdoor air quality monitoring? And I know that that is work that CRC is doing. The second is a vulnerability analysis. I do not believe it has been done for my community ever because I haven't been able to find anything. And I know that it is on the table to be done now. And a vulnerability analysis tells us things like, why is our communication infrastructure the way that it is? Why is it difficult for me to get a cell phone coverage? Why is my digital antenna going out? Why every time a plane flies over my house, I lose all connectivity? We need to know. Updating our safety elements, hazard mitigation plans annually. This is important. Our safety element in Menlo Park has not been updated since 2013. And with existing conditions changing every day, that's unacceptable. So a part of SB 1000 and the housing element update, we are currently updating our safety element to include environmental justice. The hazard mitigation plan, it's a county-wide plan, but it also has each city in it and each special jurisdiction, which is our school districts and our fire districts. That needs to be updated annually because I see short-term mitigations possible in the hazard mitigation plan. But what's important is that it's done annually, but also that we have accurate information in there. When I looked at our plan, there was information about emergency cooling centers that wasn't true. 2 of the places were closed. So which is why we have to update it annually. The next is increasing our tree canopy. I asked this question of one of our nonprofits that provides trees in communities. How many trees does it take to increase your tree canopy? Do I need 1,000 trees to increase 1%? Do I need 10,000 trees to increase 1%? We need to know. And it sounds like a very simple math problem to me. How many trees do I need to go from 7% tree canopy to 10% tree canopy? I'm thinking 30,000 trees, because I'm always going to go big. But we need to know. The next is financial and political investment from the bottom up. I cannot count how many times that I've wanted to apply as a nonprofit for a grant, and I didn't because of the amount. An allocation of $200,000 for 40 organizations. What are we going to do with that? Play? Give out gift cards? What are we going to do? We need enough money to make change. So the number that I put for my community, we will be the pilot, a $500 million investment. Give us 100% coverage on our shoreline, which would include East Palo Alto and North Fair Oaks. Give us enough money so that we can fix the communication infrastructure problem. Give us enough money so that our sound wall can be extended where there's 200 trees used to exist. And that needs to happen both politically and financially. The next is addressing systemic racism internally from the inside out. The majority of what we experience is rooted in racism. We can't deny it. I look at the one bus that comes into my community, but yet we have 72% of our residents that commute out. Why? There's no bus, so they have to drive. And what does that do? It brings traffic. Something very basic. The other piece is employment. When we're updating our general plans, when we're doing development, why is there not a policy that says 25% of hiring will come from the immediate community? What does that do? It gets people to walk to work. It's actually, I think it's simple. Housing. I know that I'm not sure if it's exactly 80, I'll say approximately 80% of my neighborhood are renters. So what does that tell you? Yes.
Well, I wanted to say that East Palo Alto is 60% renters.
So if you have more than 50% of your community are renters, what do you have? You end up with high turnover. The life of a renter is different than the life of a homeowner. Now, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but from my own experience, it's different. It's different. It's very different. So if you have a community that has a high amount of renters, it's something that we need to start addressing. How do we turn these opportunities in our housing crisis to have home ownership? Because the only thing that's being built is rentals. So which we will continue the same cycle. So those are things we need to be thinking about. Another place is education. Education. I know from when our community was annexed into the city of Menlo Park that we were also segregated from the schools. Segregation happens in the schools. In 2022, we still have that challenge. And it's something that needs to be dealt with. And what is the solution? I have my own ideas, but I'm very interested in what my community wants to do, because that to me is the most important. Education has been a challenge for my community for a long time. And the last that we have up here is infrastructure. I touched on it a little bit earlier, and that's just about what we have as far as transportation on the ground. We have construction. We have communication infrastructure. We have all of these things around infrastructure, our roads. How many of you drive down your street and wonder, when are they going to replace the road? When is my sidewalk going to get fixed? When am I going to have Wi-Fi throughout the community? To me, that's a part of communication infrastructure. The Bellhaven neighborhood is 0.6 square miles. It's not very big. So why is it that we don't have community Wi-Fi? So these are things that still need to be worked on along with environmental justice. To me, they're all connected. If I go outside and take a walk, chances are when I get home, I have to clear my throat. I need to take something for my allergy. Why is that? Because the air impacts me. And so I know it impacts my neighbors. I know it impacts my mother and my husband. And so when I think about environmental justice, all of these pieces need to be included. We need to treat the issue as a whole and not in parts. And so I'm hoping that all of us collectively in this conversation can get there together, because I know each one of you have your own ideas. I know that because I've listened to them before. The last is protecting our land. How do we protect our land? And that is not up on the screen. It's on my adaptation list. But just I'm thinking about, how do we protect our land? Is it through policy? Is it through practice? I look at all the transportation that comes in and out of my community. Very few have zero emissions. So why do we not have a zero emissions policy in communities that look like mine when it comes to public transportation? Why are we running the emission-free bus only on El Camino? Why aren't we running it on our streets, on Hamilton Avenue, on University, on Willow Road? So we need to think more broadly about what adaptation means. And to me, those are just short-term solutions, because these are tools we already have. We don't have to create them. The long-term needs, the mitigation needs, can happen in development policy. It can happen at the philanthropy level. It can happen in many different places. I just want to see a significant financial and political investment in communities we keep saying are of our concern. I want to end on a thank you. I want to end on a place of inclusion. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if there's anything that you would like to share with the remaining time that we have, or if you just, I don't know, just trying to open up the floor. Normally I don't talk more than 3 minutes. So just wanted to check in. Yes?
Yeah, I really liked the point that you made about incremental approaches to changing tree canopy, right? And tree canopy, like how many trees does it take to do a percentage, scale or proportion change there? I think what you just said about the buses is a fascinating question as well. What would the impact be of trading out one emissions bus for a zero emissions bus to, average air quality over time? And getting that kind of data would be really interesting to see, the scale of that impact.
Thank you. Are you volunteering? We can work on a project together. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for having me. Oh, yes.
Oh no, just in case you guys didn't believe that people are struggling and everything. I just got kicked out, and I have nowhere to go, and my mom's going to a hotel, right? So we're gonna apply to apartments, right? But it takes a long time, and there's not even affordable apartments, right? So it's gonna be a bunch of money. So I'm gonna have to work, right? And doing social justice work is not well paid, right? I'm not getting hella money, right? So that means it sucks, right? That I I don't get to advocate for what I want and also be well out. I still have to worry about like surviving the next day. So keep that in mind. Like people are really struggling, like really housing. Like where are we gonna go sleep, right? And then the bridge, like goddamn, right? But yeah, just keep that in mind. Like people are struggling. Like, people are struggling. People like, do we have to like? I don't feel like people don't really have to say it. Like you can see it. You just have to notice it, right? And like listen. Right. And like we have to work together. Like we have to. We can collectively win. Like we can collectively all have shelter and like food, because there's a lot that goes to waste here. We don't have a balance in our society, and all those things that go to waste, or those unused houses, unused property. People could be using that stuff. I could be using that, and not having to feel like I don't have nowhere to go. But,
I'd like to address that. I heard some of what you said.
Thank you.
I think you led off saying that you right now have nowhere to go.
well, I mean like
The
temporary.
reason I asked that question is I can make available to you shelter and hopefully leading to permanent housing. So if you'd like to talk to me on a break or something, I'd be more than happy to see what I can do to help you. Amen?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And those are kind of the goals, are to make these connections today. I just want to give a special thank you to Cecilia for really just opening. That was, to me, the perfect keynote, because it explained why we're here. So really appreciate it. Appreciate your partnership over all of these years as well. We were going to have two keynote speakers, and Cecilia actually mentioned Dave Pine. He sends his regrets. He unfortunately is ill today. He was going to be here. He was going to talk about One Shoreline. He was going to talk about PCE. He was going to talk about all of that. But unfortunately, it seems to be something that's going around. So he is definitely here in spirit. So I'd like to take a moment now, again, to appreciate everyone in the room and for you all to have a chance to appreciate each other. So you all have colored name tags, and they're colored by sector. So if you are wearing a yellow name tag, hopefully we got it right, and you are somehow or another in academia. Could you stand up if you're in academia? Stanford people, you guys know what that means? Anybody else? Okay, this is just an opportunity to take a look around, see who else is in the room. Okay, thank you. If you're a funder, somehow or another on the philanthropy side, please stand up. Everybody already knows where Jack is, but for everybody else? Great, thank you. If you are here representing a community-based organization, please stand up. Or part of a community. And if you work for the government in some form, please stand up. So our idea was for this to be cross-sector, and I think we hit it. So, awesome. Oh, and sorry, I thought community was with community-based organizations, but if you're here as yourself, as part of the community, please stand up. Stand up again if you already stood up. Make sure to be friends. The whole point of everybody standing up was so that you could see who you haven't met yet. So we're going to be doing a lot of mixing during this time. We have a community building activity that we're going to do in just a second. But after we're done with it, we're only going to take like 5 minutes for it. And then we're going to go into the cafe. And there will be lots of CBOs that are there. And you can go and learn about that. And that'll be our stretch break. Please be back here exactly at 10:45, because Violet has an amazing panel and you don't want to miss it. But our activity is really easy to follow. Find someone who works in a different sector, and don't forget, we just have colors on the name tag, so it's easy. And talk about why you're here. Why did you show up today? on a Monday. And then find someone who works in a different city, in a different geographic area, and talk to them also. What concerns you most about climate change? Do that. Go out, enjoy the CBOs afterwards, and when you come back, feel free to sit at a different table if you want to mix it up a little. Okay, thank you.